Shalom, Yashrala. This is your brother Dawud Daw from GMS Tampa Bay 07, coming at you with this truth again. First and foremost, I want to give all praises unto Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shah, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that ruled well and taught me this truth, and salutations to you Akim, pushing this truth and sincerity on the four corners of the earth. I'm going to get into this here lesson dealing with the tribe of Issachar, the so-called Mexicans. You know, there was a comment left on one of the other camp's videos, with one of the so-called Mexican, or Gentile. He's coming into this here truth, he's starting to define a little bit of this here truth, but then he was kind of thrown off by, I don't know who it was, maybe another camp or something like that, saying that all 12 tribes were so-called Negroes, or really, really dark skin, So we're going to get into this here lesson, going into the tribe of Issachar, the so-called Mexicans, okay? So, we'll just jump right into it. This is the book of Genesis, chapter 30. Verse 8, not 18. Start at verse 15. Now, this is dealing with, I'll just read it, and it'll let you know what's going on here. It says, and she said unto her, is it a small matter that thou takest my husband, and wouldest thou takest away my son's mandrakes also? And Rachel said, therefore he shall lie with thee tonight for thy son's mandrakes. And Jacob came out of the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him, and said, thou must come unto me, for I surely have hired thee with my son's mandrakes. And he lay with her that night. Okay? So, basically, Leah here, paid for, like, in modern days today, you're, like, paying for a service, You paid to get your lawn cut, You wanted to, hiring a lawn service to come cut your grass, So she's basically doing that here, She's hiring out, or buying, to sleep with her husband at night, Jacob had two wives, Rachel and Leah, and also he had the two handmaidens, Zilpah and Bilhah. So nevertheless, keep reading on down, it says, verse 17, and Yahweh hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived, and bare Jacob the fifth son. And Leah said, Yahweh hath given me my hire, because I have given my maiden to my husband, and she called his name Issachar. So Issachar basically is going into, the name Issachar is going into he is hired, okay? So, dealing with the spirit, of being, he is hired, when you look at these jobs and stuff like that, all the jobs that nobody wants to do, who do they call to do these jobs, so-called Mexicans. Those are the ones who's out there in the fields, in the back of these restaurants, in the kitchens cooking, the ones that's building your really, really nice houses, the ones that's doing the landscaping for your nice houses and stuff like that. You call the so-called Mexicans to come do these here jobs for you, You need your house painted or roof done and stuff like that. Who you calling? So-called Mexicans, And also, you go out to like a Home Depot or a Lowe's or something like that in the morning time, or certain gas stations, and you'll see so-called Mexicans looking for contractors to pretty much hop on. Certain Edomite contractors, they know when they go ride around, they see a group of Mexicans, they looking for work, You see so-called Edom or so-called white people or Edomites on the side of the road with a sign saying, hey, look, give me some money, feed me, I'm hungry, But you see Mexicans on the side of the road with signs saying, look, need work, Are you hiring? Pretty much, they're looking for work, They're the ones doing all the back-breaking labor and stuff that nobody else wants to do. This is Genesis 49, verse 14. It says, Issachar is a strong ass crouching down between two burdens. And he saw that rest was good, and the land it was pleasant, and bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a servant unto tribute. And that's basically talking about, where Mexico is, pretty much, But it also says, Issachar is a strong ass crouching down between two burdens, and an ass is pretty much like a donkey or a mule, which is like a working tool, like in those days they use these things pretty much for like a tool, you know what I'm saying? Like, for a lot of things, you more or less like a wheelbarrow. When you use a wheelbarrow for hauling stuff, dirt and rocks and stuff like that, But it's pretty much saying like he's a strong working tool, or he's a hard worker, more or less to say, First of all, he's hired, he's the one that people are looking for to hire out to get some work done. Not only is he hired, but he's a hard worker, And they like to say, Jacob is lazy, but really, Jacob just wore out and tired. Jacob ain't really lazy. Jacob is over here doing all these here jobs nobody else wants to do, And really, the head of all of that in the workforce would be Issachar. Issachar will take any job that nobody else wants, Next scripture is in the book, 1 Chronicles, chapter 7, and verse 5. And their brethren among all the families of Issachar were valiant men of might, reckoned in all by their genealogies 7,000. Okay, so the point here I wanted to grab was, and their brethren among all the families of Issachar, so basically the men of Issachar were valiant men of might, And when you go and you look at, you can go back into like the Mayans and the Aztecs and basically the so-called Mexicans' history before they were called so-called Mexicans, and they were pretty much warriors. They fought. And also in modern days today, you got the cartels and stuff like that. You have these, you got the Bloods and the Crips, right? They're on one level, but then when you get into these so-called Mexican gangs, they're on a whole nother level. When you go into the Cetresas, MS-13. Things like that, These are, you see them all with all the tats in their face and stuff like that. You be like, yo, they some real valiant men, those are the real soldiers and stuff like that, They go and push it all the way to the limits, or they don't really have limits, You got like Judah or so-called black man, they'll be drug dealers and stuff like that, right? But the Mexicans are so-called like drug lords, like El Chapo type of deal, We're going to jump into this next script. Still in 1 Chronicles chapter 12, though. And 32. 1 Chronicles 12 and 32. And of the children of Issachar, the so-called Mexicans, which were men that had understanding of the times to know what Israel ought to do, the heads of them were 200, and all their brethren were at their commandment. So the point here was that, and the children of Issachar, which were men that had understanding of times. Okay, basically they knew how to read the sky, like astrology type of deal, not with the how do they say horoscopes? Not talking about horoscopes and stuff like that, but more or less looking at the skies for the seasons and stuff like that, and times and this and that. They could look up and see certain things, And really, they're like the best people, the most accurate people when it comes to telling times and stuff like that, You go back in history, they tell you that one of the most precise calendars that there ever has been is the Mayan calendar, And the Mayan calendar, the Mayans pretty much are so-called Mexicans, Next scripture we're going to get is in the book of Exodus, chapter 12, and I'm going to start at verse 3. Now, this is dealing with the whole house of Israel, but I want to pull this out for, a certain thing here. So, this is Exodus 12 and 3. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of this month, they shall take to them every man a lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. And if the household be too little for a lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto him, unto his house, take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall take count for the lamb. Okay? Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year, and you shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats, and you shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. Okay? And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the two side posts and on the upper door posts of the house wherein they shall eat it. Okay? So basically this is talking about the Passover ceremony, right? So we're going to get into what they ate, And I bring this out for the simple fact, like the scriptures say, our spirit bear witness with their spirit, or with the spirit that we are the children of the Most High, And also pairing that with the spirit of the prophets are subject unto the prophets, putting those two together, basically, you'll find out that, whatever you did back in those days, you still doing it up until this day. It's just inside of your spirit. That's just something that you do. And so like Esau, who sold his birthright for that same red meat, he still eat that same red meat unto this day. When you go to the restaurant, they ask you how you like, the fact that they ask you how you like your steak done, it goes to show, because everybody should be eating they steak like well done, more or less, all the way cooked, no pink in the middle at all, But because the scriptures say don't eat nothing with the blood in it. But nevertheless, yeah, like we're going to read here, it says eat it not raw. But Esau does that. He did that back in the day, when the actual man Esau was on the planet Earth, and they still do it up until this day, okay? So this is one of the customs that the children of Israel did, but the so-called Mexicans still do this till this day, okay? It says, verse 8, and they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Okay, eat it not raw. Okay, like Esau liked to have his, nor sodden at all with water, but roasted with fire, his head with his legs, and with the purtenance thereof. Okay, so basically just cook the whole deal. Okay, so I wanted to bring that there out because of the fact of, on the weekends, we go to, to a so-called Mexican's house or whatever, they normally are grilling on the weekend, They're around with their family, they sitting out there grilling, And so they'll have like their meat on the grill, they have like chicken, fajitas, or sometimes actually like lamb, they eat lamb and stuff like that, And they'll sit there and they'll grill it on the grill, and it won't have no pink in it, it'll be cooked all the way through, won't be raw. They'll cook it all the way through, and then they have their bitter herbs, like cilantro, and then their unleavened bread. Now, when you get into what leaven means, leaven is more or less like in today's terms how they say yeast, So if you have leavened bread, it's like going to the store and going to go get sandwich bread, That bread started to rise. It rose up, But then when you dealing with unleavened bread, it's like bread that don't rise, So it's like flatbread or tortillas. This is, you go to the store, you see Mexicans getting tortillas, they eating unleavened bread, So, again, going back into the spirits are subject unto the prophets, and, the spirits are subject unto the prophets, and also, basically, you're going to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. The spirit bear witness that the spirit bear witness with this, our spirit bear witness with the spirit that we are the children of the Most High. So, again, pairing those two things together, like the things that's inside of us, what's in our spirit to do, we're going to keep doing it over and over generationally, over and over and over again. We like to do the same types of things, It's in us, like how Esau, in the beginning time, liked raw meat, uncooked all the way through meat. And even unto this day, he's still doing the same thing, So back in those days, one of our customs was eating or partaking in the Passover with the unleavened bread, And so, and basically they was grilling this here meat, So today, they still do this today, They out there eating they fajitas or their lamb or whatever, and they got it rolled up in they unleavened bread inside of a taco, and they sometimes put like cilantro and stuff on top of it, Let me jump to the next scripture. We'll pull two of these real quick, and we're going to break it down. This is Numbers 15 and 38. It says, Numbers 15 and 38. Speak unto the children of Israel, and bid them that they make them fringes in the borders of their garments throughout their generation. Okay? So you're going to make fringes on your garments, and you pass this down from generation to generation. This is going to be your custom. Okay? Throughout the generations, that they put upon the fringes of the border a ribbon of blue. Okay? Now, I can read the reason why. And it shall be unto you for a fringe, that you may look upon it and remember all the commandments of Yahweh and do them. And that you seek not after your own heart and your own eyes, after which you use to go a-whoring. Okay? So basically, the reason that we wear the fringes in the border of blue is to remember the new law, statutes, commandments, But I wanted to bring this here part out, as one of the customs that we did back in the day, was we wore fringes on our garments, you know. And so I'm going to grab the next one and we're going to go into it. This is the book of Deuteronomy 22 and 12. It says, thou shalt make thee fringes upon the four quarters of thy vesture, wherewith thou coverest thyself. So basically, the Most High is telling us, look, you're gonna have your garment, and then at the bottom of it, you're gonna have fringes on the bottom, and also the border of blue, you know. But again, you know, the things that we did back, that was in our spirit to do back then, we still predominantly do it to this day, you know. So, dealing with, you know, the so-called Native Americans and the so-called Mexicans, you know, one of their actual garments that they would wear, you know, when they was in their, when they was keeping their customs as the so-called natives and their customs as the so-called, I don't know what they was called before well, yeah, they had other names before Mexicans, but like the Mayans, the Aztecs, and stuff like that. But nevertheless, if you look up a Mexican poncho, okay, these things, they have fringes on the bottom, you know. And if you see our camp videos and stuff like that, you know, I'm the brother with the red garment, you know. And when I got that garment, I went on Amazon and looked it up. And, you know, I didn't type in an Israelite garment, you know, I just typed in a Mexican poncho. And, you know, took that. That's pretty much a ready-made Israelite garment. You know, all I had to do was add the border of blue at the bottom. You know, so you know, again, like how Esau he couldn't answer why he liked raw meat. You know, it's just something that's in his spirit. He don't even really know why. You know, he was asked the so-called natives or the so-called Mexicans why they wearing fringes. You know, and they couldn't even tell you why. What's the point of this? You know, you look at in these so-called Native American outfits and stuff like that. You know, they have fringes on them, you know. You go look up a Mexican poncho, they have fringes at the bottom of those, you know. And even in some of the Mexican outfits where they had the big sombreros and stuff like that, and the thing that kind of looks like a suit a little bit like that, they even have fringes on those things, you know. So you have to ask yourself, where did they get that from, you know? These, you know, according to the so-called white man, that the people that was already over here, the so-called natives and the so-called Mexicans and stuff like that, they was already over here, you know. They never went on the other side of the planet. They just, you know, I guess they just evolved on this side of the planet. You know, this is Esau's thinking, you know. Well, if these people just evolved on this side of the planet, you know, and never had contact with nobody on the eastern side of the planet, where the hell did they get these here customs from? Where did they get this here information from? Okay? They didn't never have contact with those people, but, well, when Columbus and them came over and Ponce de Leon and all these people came over, they found these people. For one, you know, they brought a Hebrew translator who could speak Hebrew because this is what these people were speaking. They wasn't speaking Spanish. You know, they got the Spanish language from their slave owners, you know. Like we wasn't speaking English, you know. The so-called white man gave us English, okay? But these people were speaking Hebrew beforehand, you know. But nevertheless, you know, these are just some of the things that they still keep as their customs to these days. And they couldn't tell you why they do it or where it came from, you know. It's just something that they just kept passing on down. Like the scriptures say, look, from generation unto generation, you know, you're going to put these here fringes on your clothes, you know. Let me read one more time, Deuteronomy 22 and 12. Thou shalt make thee fringes upon the four corners of thy vesture, or when thou coverest thyself. All right, so I'm going to get into some of these here curses in Deuteronomy 28, you know. So a lot of the time these things are being read and, you know, people might perceive that this is only talking about the so-called southern kingdom, you know, the so-called Negroes and things like that. But this is actually dealing with all the tribes. I'm going to just pull out a couple of these here curses where you can clearly see that this also affects the so-called Mexicans, okay? So just to preface this is Deuteronomy 28 and 15. But it shall come to pass if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Yahweh thy power, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Okay? So, look, basically the Most High made a deal with us, you know. We signed a contract, you know. We fulfill our end, he fulfills his end. We follow these law, statutes, commandments, he's going to put us up on high. If we go off, he's going to put us on punishment. And right now we're on punishment. And so we're going to see the condition that we will be in today. And again, I challenge, you know, anybody who thinks that, the Northern Kingdom isn't the Northern Kingdom to show me who they are in the scriptures, because everybody else is accounted for. But, according to them, the so-called Mexicans and the Puerto Ricans, the Cubans, the Venezuelans, the Panamanians, and all these people are so-called not accounted for, So you have to try to show me where they are in the scriptures. But I can show you, through the curses, the depiction that, this was written at the beginning of the Bible, way before, people even, this was written before, the Northern Kingdom even came over to this side, because actually they all right there with Moses right at this point in time. They just came up out of Egypt, So they all still right there, So there was way more than 2,000 years that hadn't passed by, and these people, since this was written, and these people still fit this here description till this day. So it says, Deuteronomy 28:16, cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. Okay? Yeah, and Mexicans, so-called Mexicans, they be cursed, whether they be, in a city life type of deal, and wherever they doing the regular lifestyle, they always getting persecuted, and, they call the immigration on them, they in fear of deportation and stuff like that, and people would say all kinds of things like, look, go back to your country or learn English, this and that, and it's fucked up that the so-called white man would tell a so-called Mexican to learn how to speak English. Like, first of all, they wasn't even speaking Spanish to begin with. You the one gave them Spanish, and now you don't speak Spanish. You mad that they just following the fuck you told them to do. Like, that's just, it's just crazy, But nevertheless, let me get another one real quick. Oh, right here. This is Deuteronomy 28:26. And their carcass shall be meat unto all fowls of the air, and unto the beasts of the earth, and no man shall fray them away. Okay. Now, the Southern Kingdom, the so-called Negroes and stuff like that. There was a point in time where, the so-called white people would take them out in the fields and stuff like that, and hang them on trees and stuff. This is where you get the song "Strange Fruit" from Nina Simone from, and also where they get the terms picnic and barbecue from, They would pick a nigga and barbecue his ass, But, and now that's dealing with the Southern Kingdom, but go back over to the Northern Kingdom, and going back onto the Southern Kingdom, I even have images of so-called Negroes, like a Negro man and his two sons all chained to a tree, just sitting there, and they just leave their body there, They hang them in trees and stuff and just leave them there, or leave their body wherever they kill them at, But that happened to the Southern Kingdom. But on the Northern Kingdom, okay, it says, and thy carcass shall be meat unto all fowls of the air, and unto the beasts on the earth, and no man shall fray them away. And when you go out there between the Mexico and America border, they have to walk basically through that big hot dry area, and they get a lot of times they get dehydrated and stuff like that, and get lost, and you'll pretty much see them. They just die where they at, and nobody is going around trying to, pick up their remains or anything like that. You'll see them decay all the way down to the skeletal sense, and then the animals will come by and pick up their bones and eat their flesh and stuff like that, and the vultures and stuff like that. They wind up eating them out there in those deserts and stuff when they're trying to either smuggle drugs into the country or just get over here, Either way, they're trying to get up out of that oppression that they're in. This is verse 33, Deuteronomy 28:33. The fruit of thy land and all thy labor shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed all ways. So, the fruit of thy land. What is the fruit of thy land? It's okay. So you think of an apple tree. Okay, the fruit of the apple tree would be what the tree is producing, or the resources of that tree. Which would be the apple. Okay. So the fruit of the land will be the fruit of the land, or any of the resources that come up off of that land, whether it be oil, actual fruits, gold, or anything like that, But who's going to be benefiting off of that? Is it the so-called Mexicans? You know, they got like the agave plant and stuff like that. But who's owning all these big tequila factories and stuff like that? You know, and all they major produce. I can't remember if it was corn, bananas, or something like that. Where basically Esau went in and took over that industry. You know, and now none of the so-called native Mexicans are reaping none of those benefits, but yet the stuff is still there. You know. Let me go back up. Deuteronomy 28 and 28. And Yahweh shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart. And thou shalt grope at noonday as the blind gropeth in the darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways. And thou shalt only be oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. Yeah, and you'll see like around by the liquor store and stuff like that, a little tree with a bunch of a couple Mexicans sitting up under the tree drinking all day long, and you know, when you look at them, you know, you could just tell that they just vexed. They're not there drinking because they just want to party and live it up. They having a good time. Nah, they trying to drown out their sorrows and stuff like that. You know, they get off of work. You know, especially on Fridays. You know, when I'm on my way to work on Fridays, you know, I'll stop at the store, and there'll be a couple like old school buses, but they farm buses now, and it'll be a line like 2 or 3 buses full of Mexicans coming in there cashing their checks, right? And then they cashing their checks, grabbing them some beer, you know what I'm saying? Just to, hey, they still in their lawn uniforms or they farming uniforms and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And you know, they be sweaty and stuff like that, and people will be walking in making all kind of comments. Oh, they just stink, and they just this. Yo, man, these people out there in the fucking fields picking your goddamn produce and shit like that. I mean, they're not gonna be smelling pleasant. They just got off a hard damn day of work, you know. All these Mexicans always drinking. Yo, they want some relaxation time, you know. So-called Edomites, they be at work in a damn office all damn day making a 6-figure income, and they go on their lunch break and they go down to the bar and go get drunk and go back to work. You know, Issachar is working in a hot-ass field and shit all damn day, 12, 14, 16 hours a day. You know what I'm saying? They want to get off and go have a beer just to, how do you say, forget about the shit that they going through, you know? So it says, Deuteronomy 28 and 28 again. Yahweh shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart, and thou shalt grope at noonday as the blind gropeth in the darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways. Thou shalt only be oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. We're going to read this 30. Deuteronomy 28 and 30. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Okay? Thou shalt build a house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Okay? And when you look at the majority of the houses built here in America, you know, it's built by so-called Mexicans. You know, one day I was riding through a nice white people neighborhood, you know, real nice white people neighborhood. And I'm watching these, you know, I see a bunch of Mexicans building houses. You know, they developing this new neighborhood, you know. And I see some Mexicans out here, so-called Mexicans out here building these houses, and it just dawned on me. I was like, yo, this is sad as fuck, you know. They sitting over here in this here neighborhood and surrounded by all these big-ass nice houses and stuff like that. And the fact that they out here building these houses, you know, and just the fact that, like, yo, they never going to live in none of these neighborhoods or a neighborhood like this or in any of these types of houses. But yet they know how to build these houses, and they know how to build them good, because if they was doing shitty jobs, they wouldn't be getting hired to do the job, you know. But they building these houses good quality, and they going on the market to sell them for hundreds of thousands of dollars and stuff like that. And, you know, you paying Issachar, you know, basically next to nothing, you know. And Issachar will be out there 18 hours a day breaking his back for you, you know. He out here building houses up and basically, you know, like actual houses, you know, and don't get to dwell therein, you know. Still in verse 30, continuing on. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and thou shalt not gather the grapes thereof. Yeah. So, you know, this isn't talking about, look, you're going to plant a tomato field, and you ain't going to go out there and pick none of the tomatoes. No, it's saying you're going to go out there and plant a tomato field, and you're going to pick the tomatoes, but you're not going to benefit from none of the tomatoes, you know? Like, if I sat there and planted a whole farm of tomatoes, you know, I did the actual labor. It took me time and labor to do all that. Then I went out there and harvested it all, you know? And then, you know, you go out there to go to sell it,
all that should go back unto me because I'm the one who did all the labor for it. But yet when this happens to so-called Mexicans, they just getting pennies on the dollar, not even that. Jump down to verse 38. Thou shalt carry much seed out into the field, and thou shalt gather little in, for the locust shall consume it. Yeah, so like basically, you plant a bunch of seeds, but you don't really get to reap none of the harvests or a lot of the harvest from it because the locust or the so-called white man is the one that's reaping it. Now, you could look at this as regular seed, but also in anything like how somebody say, like they say in the church, the Christian church, sow a $5 seed. Anything that you so-called investing in, anything that you invest in, you ain't gonna really reap the whole profit off of it, So looking at the resources and stuff, like in Mexico, the agave plant and the produce and stuff that they got out there, the Mexicans don't really benefit from that because Esau's got his hand into all their things, Jump into this here last script. Deuteronomy 28:42. All thy trees and fruit of thy land shall the locust consume. Okay? Now, again, this is dealing with the resources. All thy trees and the fruit of thy land, okay, shall the locust consume. Again, like the agave plant. I believe it's corn. And there was something else out there. I can't remember what it was. But basically, Esau came over and took over the markets, So this is why Mexico is considered a so-called poor country when they're not really all that poor at all, They actually have a lot of stuff over there, and they got a good land and everything like that, but they're not the ones reaping the benefits, Same with like Venezuela. Venezuela, I believe, has the world's largest oil supply, But yet they're not the one that's in control of their own oil. They're not the ones benefiting off the oil, So again, this is pretty much, saying, like it says in Deuteronomy 28:42, and all thy trees and the fruit of thy land shall the locust consume. You're not going to be able to consume none of your own resources, You went and you invested $100 into the stock market, that $100 and turned into $100 million, but you can't collect. But you the one put your money in, but you can't collect. Somebody else is going to collect off of your own doings, That's pretty much what's going on here, Well, just as a recap real quick, before we here close this out, some of the things we went over, the name Issachar and what it means. He is hired, And also Issachar is a strong ass, or a strong mule or a donkey, or a working tool, So putting those together, it's like, look, he's a hard worker, and he's the one who is, everybody's hiring him because of, for one, the low wages they can pay him. Two, they know he's a hard worker. And three, he really can't say nothing if you do anything wrong to him because he might be in fear of being deported or anything like that, Also, we went into Israel, but also Issachar. Issachar being valiant men, men of might, and you can see how that plays out today with the Sothresas, the Mexican gangs and stuff like that, the cartels and things like that. Then we also went into Issachar having understanding the times, just like the so-called Mayans, they was very precise. They was the most precise. They had the most precise calendar that there is, and that's the so-called Mexicans because of the spirit that they had put into them. The Most High programmed them to have this here ability. That's why it says, we're not right there. But anyway, about his understanding of time, Issachar, how you say, is pretty wise, especially looking at like the stars, the moon, things like that, And again, that's not talking about astrology in the sense of your horoscope and things like that. It's just more or less looking at the sky of a giant clock, being able to tell what time it is and the seasons and things like that based off of that. And we also went into the Passover and how on the Passover they basically ate. They would grill like a lamb or something, and then they would eat it with unleavened bread and with basically like not bitter vegetation, but bitter herbs, you know. And, you know, looking at how Mexicans eat tacos is pretty much the same deal, you know. They even have lamb tacos, believe it or not. And we also went into the fringes and how the children of Israel are supposed to wear fringes. And when you look at Mexican ponchos or so-called Native American clothing, you see the fringes on that, you know, these people are wearing fringes, you know. And, you know, you have to think about where they get these customs from and to begin with. You know, they can't really answer that question, but it's just something that's in their spirit that they keep doing, you know. Just like most Jake couldn't tell you why they like chicken so much or why they like chitlins and things like that, you know. But if they was to remember their past, they'd be like, oh, yeah, we was in slavery, and they was giving us the slop of every damn thing. This is why you like chitlins and things like that, you know. Then we also went into some of the curses, you know. It was cursed in the streets and stuff like that, and also that these other nations or Esau is going to be eating off the fruit of their land. They're not going to be able to benefit off their own land, you know. Also, we read about how that their body's going to be laying dead and basically dead in the streets. You know, how they be out there trying to cross the border and wind up getting dehydrated and just falling down where they at now, you know. And then, you know, the birds and the little animals come over there and start eating at your flesh, you know. Nobody is like, hey, look, there's a dead body. Let's go, you know, at least retrieve it and give it a proper burial. Like, oh, no, he maxed and leave him, you know. Then also, we read about how so-called Mexicans be out there farming, but they don't really get none of the benefits off of any of those things, you know. And also how they build a house and they don't live in them, you know. Lord willing, you know, this here answered any of your questions and, you know, got you on the right path again, you know. Like I said, this video was in response to a comment that was left on the video about what seemed to be a sincere brother who was just misguided. You know, he found out he was an Israelite and was happy about that. They found out or heard that all 12 tribes were so-called Negroes or so-called black folks, you know. But, you know, Lord willing, with this video, it cleared up all of those things, you know. And again, whenever somebody tries to tell you something like that, ask them, okay, well, if you know, the Northern Kingdom isn't who we say the Northern Kingdom is, who are the so-called Mexicans in the scriptures? Show me the Mexicans in the scriptures, you know. Because everybody else, all the 18 nations can be accounted for. But if you take away the Northern Kingdom, you have to show me who and where they are in the scripts, you know. Well, with that, Lord willing, this video was edifying. I say until next time, call Halal Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shah. Double honors to the apostles and elders of great millstone that taught me to say the truth. And salutations to you, Akim, pushing this truth and sincerity on the four corners of the earth. Stay strong. Shalom.